Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. Over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks or so, we've been looking at dissonance, conventional dissonances, how to use dissonances in chord progressions, basic melodies, preparing and resolving them. Well, it's all pretty interesting, and I think today might be the last sort of installment. And today I want to look at modal dissonances, the modes of the major scale, and also the ascending melodic minor, give us interesting resources for the dissonant intervals that we're learning how to work with. In fact, they're absolutely crucial to identify the character of the modes. So in some sense, the dissonances themselves are a signature sound of each mode. I've got 6 examples. Let's take a look at them. Well, listen, I've just been delighted by the response that I've gotten from you guys about this series on dissonances. And of course, dissonances are absolutely essential to good music making. I want to do a quick review of what I mean when I say modes. And this is kind of generally true for everyone's outlook, but I have my own sort of ideas about how best to describe a mode. Well, if I play a standard major scale, I get a collection of notes, and my computer correctly identifies this as the C Ionian mode, the C major scale. Well, the major scale in this context, and I'm not going to say key signature, I'm just going to say scale most of the time here, because key signatures are a different thing. We should talk about that some other time. That C major scale, it gives us a bag of notes. And if I say I'm going to use just these notes, but begin on a different step of the scale, I'll say I go to E, I get a new collection of notes that, again, my computer correctly identifies here as the E Phrygian mode. Each step of the scale has a different modal name. And it's worth knowing them so that you can talk with your friends, fellow musicians, about how notes are arranged and how the half steps appear within the mode. As you can see, if I play a regular C Ionian scale, there's a half step between the third and the fourth step of the scale, and then way up at the top, another half step as I return to the C. Now, those half steps, because of the collection of notes I've chosen, are going to be in that location no matter what. So if I go to the E Phrygian scale, the mode begins with a half step immediately. This is kind of titillating to the listener's ears, suggestive for us as composers, and very interesting. It means we get chord progressions that have this kind of quality that's fascinating. The 7th degree is a whole step below, so it's very rock and roll. Right? Each of the modes has that sort of signature sound built into it. And it's worth really getting to know them in every key. Sorry, but it's true. Now, I mentioned, and I should probably talk about this, the ascending melodic minor. And that has a minor third, a natural 6th, and a natural 7th. The melodic minor scale, as it's taught to young piano students, goes up with a natural 6th and natural 7th, and then weirdly descends with a flat 7 and a flat 6. In other words, how to put this? It's a major scale, not with a major third, but with a minor third on the way up. And on the way down, it's just the natural minor. Well, for modes, we're only going to use the ascending melodic minor. And there's an interesting effect from that. And I want to point it out to you before we go on, because I've used the ascending melodic minor in 2 examples. There's a run of whole steps in here. Whole, 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 whole. And that run of whole steps is really interesting sounding. And again, signature to the ascending melodic minor and its modes. The fourth mode of the ascending melodic minor gets called the Lydian Dominant scale and gets used in bop and sort of, I guess you say, jazz all the time. And then this is a beautiful scale, the fifth mode of the ascending melodic minor here, called the D Mixolydian flat 6, a slightly awkward name for a great sounding scale. The fifth mode of the ascending melodic minor. It doesn't have like a Greek name like the other ones. Modes. Okay, you've got to know your scales to work with them, but I've got 6 examples of the sounds of them to give you sort of a little bit of a head start into what is best for you, maybe what you might be interested in exploring. Let's go back to the beginning and take a look. Well, as promised, I'm going to jump right in to an ascending melodic minor mode. And here's that unique sound. We've got the Lydian flat 7, G Lydian Dominant. And that little run of whole steps as a repeating figure. Almost an ostinato. Creates a really interesting space. It's tranquil, right? But at the same time, maybe a little unsettled. No modulation in that entire example. When you're working in a mode, you just set a group of notes that is the mode. So here's my set of pitches. There's another G on the top. And there's no tonic dominant relationships. There's no conventional 4-1, 5-1. My center is G, but how do I get to it? It's kind of all about the melody. Right? Modes are essentially melodic, but as soon as we start putting harmonies in them, we begin to get these dense, dissonant sonorities, which still kind of makes sense because everything is built into the mode. It's internally consistent, maybe is one way to think about it. Let's go to our second example. Well, this is just a lovely Dorian mode, the second mode of the major scale, and the most popular one, D Dorian, all the white keys. So, the signature tone in the Dorian mode is the major 6. Otherwise, it sounds like a normal minor. So whenever a B appears in the voicing, like there, it's going to really reinforce that Dorian quality. And you can hear I've used a lot of major seconds. This melody right here that closes is sort of a really characteristic Dorian sound. This note here is the major 6 against the D, and that's what makes it sound Dorian. Great sound. All right, I have another example, so let's keep going. Modes, modes, modes. Okay, this is very simply the natural minor, and it's the C natural minor. So we've got a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7. And it's a sound that we're really familiar with. We just love it, C Aeolian. And it means we can really kind of get some crunchy sounds in there. There's some cool half steps between 3 and 2, between 6 and 5. And I like this for rhythmic stuff. Do you hear this? The 6, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really, all all the same chords, just inversions laid one on top of the other. The natural minor, it's the most conventional of the modes, and it shows up in tons of folk songs and folk music, rock music. There are three important minor modes. There's the mode on the second degree of the scale, the Dorian, the sixth degree of the scale, the Aeolian, and then the Phrygian mode, the one that we talked about at first with that weird little half step there at the beginning. I suppose you could say that the seventh degree of the major scale, the Locrian mode, is a minor mode as well, but its flat 5 has it makes it difficult to manage because everything winds up sounding a little dominant, and I actually haven't got an example of it today, but if you're feeling brave, play around with the Locrian mode. Let's go on. So here's a B Phrygian sound. And here I'm relying on the melody to center my ear on the E. And I suppose if I had a bass player, I'd have them, play a B down here just to really center the ear. This is great film score texture. And here there's tons of seconds. You can hear how the dissonant intervals play with each other. You've probably noticed I've used a lot of ostinati, repeated figures, and there's just something about modal playing and modal writing in general that lends itself to repeated rhythms, signature sort of harmonic figures, as it were. And it's because it almost feels sort of like folk music, world music. Very often the modal textures lends itself to that kind of sound. Well, listen, I want to say one thing before we go on to our last two examples, which is to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If this is the second or third video of mine you've seen and you're getting something out of the channel, and I hope you are, you've got a bunch of options to support the channel, your fellow subscribers, and me. Subscribing to the channel is great. I love that. The questions and comments that we get really encourage me to think about what direction to go, and I've seen some just wonderful, lively discussion as well. I always appreciate the super thanks, and I'll always go and get myself another cup of coffee. You guys probably realize this is not a money-making thing for me, right? My teacher, Dr. Roland Wiggins, was a great musical mind, and I honor him as I try to put forward the things that I got from him. I really believe that as an artist and as a person, as part of a just general philosophy, that you can really have anything you want in life, and I'm a lucky person if you're willing to just give it away, right? These lessons are for everyone. It's music theory, but it's not academic music theory, and you're not going to be tested on this, or perhaps your only test will be yourself. I hope this is music theory for everyone. I hope you can use it right away. I hope that it's a way for you to think about what's important in your music. Well, let's go on to the next example. Two more examples. So this is an E Lydian mode. It's the fourth mode of any major scale. We've got a raised fourth degree. And so it has a kind of a bright, pushed sound. I can really hear the B tonality in this, but we never get to the B, right? So it feels like we're kind of always tumbling forward in a joyful sort of way. Always end on the 9 if you can. I've got one more example. And my last example is another mode of the ascending melodic minor scale. This is the fifth mode, the Mixolydian flat 6. And this really does feel like kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like twisted ballet music, right? I spent an awful lot of time in ballet class. That scale sounds great. The major seconds in that figure in the left hand, keep everything tumbling forward. Well, learning your modes is a kind of a long process. You've got to understand the structure of the major scale, the structure of the ascending melodic minor scale, maybe some other important scales, and then ask yourself questions about how that structure plays when you shift the tonal emphasis from the conventional first step of the scale to second, third, fourth, or fifth. You'll wind up with half steps in funny places, and a lot of the time that's kind of what it comes down to. Each mode has a signature sound, that signature location of the half steps. If there are no half steps in your mode, like let's say you decide, I don't know if you call a pentatonic scale a mode, but if you decide to use like a pentatonic scale, there are no half steps anywhere. The truth is everything will sound good. You can play all the notes at once. No one's going to have, the hackles on the back of your neck won't raise at all, as opposed to, you know, sounds like that give you kind of surprising results. You're going to have things that you like best. And in order to really take the inventory about what works for you best, I'm going to encourage you to try to look at as many of the possibilities as you can survey. Like, what if there's something out there, like that weird sound, that last piece that I did, which I love. I would kind of never have found that sound if I hadn't explored the possibility of the ascending melodic minor modes, right? Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe, ding the bell to be notified when I do my videos, and I'll see you next time.